It's time for good energy, and I'm Dr. Julie, and welcome to Bodyful Day 206. Today we are talking about joy in the senses, and we are talking about the kinesthetic sense. So remember that kinesthetic sense is the sense of joints in space, and we're going to talk about what sort of things give us joy when we use those. All right, so let's start with the basics. Take a deep breath in. And release. Take another deep breath in. Expand through the belly, expand through the chest, expand all the way up into the head. And as you do, tuck your tail a little bit. And release. And because we are doing joy in the senses, think about something joyful today, something that brought you joy today. And go ahead and breathe into that. And release. We had a virtual 80th birthday party for my mother-in-law today, so that was joyful for us. All right, so today we're going to talk about the kinesthetic sense, and we're going to talk about joy. This is day 4 of Joy in the Senses, and we are talking about how your senses can bring you joy. Now, we've talked about the fact that there's an interaction between top down and bottom up, and that bottom up processing, and that is true here. Your senses by themselves can trigger a joyful component, but a lot of times the sense of joy has to deal with the top down energy. It's the how you think about those sensory pieces of information. So here's one. That is 10 joints, maybe a little more. I think I cracked a little bit more, but those are 10 joints that I crack on a daily basis. I just crack those little knuckles on the top ends of my fingers all the time. And every once in a while you will catch me cracking a wrist or two, or a knee, or a sternum, or an ankle. I crack my joints, and it brings me joy to release whatever tension is in there because of gas buildup in that joint cavity, in that little joint cavity. It is so energizing and calming, and at the same time, and that brings me joy. And I know that there are a lot of you out there that go, ugh. And in fact, my eldest cracks his top knuckles by hyperextending his fingers, and I find that absolutely horrid. I'm always like, don't do that. Or else he pulls on his toes. I'm like, don't do that, not in front of me. And at the same time, I pop my knees, I pop my ankles, I pop up a lot of other things, and they bring me joy. So that is a sensory, is both the bottom up and a top down experience of joy, because those joints, that kinesthetic sense is being released, that kinesthetic tension is being released, and in the release there is joy, there is pleasure, there is happiness. Now, we've already talked about the stretch and how stretch can be joyful. And we talked about the difference between what modern day Western stretch is, which is if you cannot turn your head to the right, then you work on stretching to the right. Or if you cannot tip your head to the left, then you work on stretching your head to the left. But the Japanese approach called Sotai is not about stretching into what hurts, but is about stretching into what is already feeling good, what works, the best side. And in doing that, you are stretching into ease, you are stretching into places that bring you joy. We can also talk about stretch as a joy experience when you work towards getting to a particular level, how far can I stretch? We can also talk about that stretch being in terms of opening up. So we've already talked about the fact that a lot of times we are crunched in because of working on our computers and staring at our Zoom calls or working on our devices, and that we do a lot of this. And so lying back over an exercise ball or over a foam roller and opening up is a joyful stretch because it is opening rather than closing, and it is that stretch that makes us feel better. Now, we can also talk about kinesthetic in terms of certain movements. So marching for some people feels really good, and we talked about that. That was like the very first Bodyful I ever did, was that marching, pounding your feet, and that rhythm has a tendency to release anxiety, and releasing anxiety obviously leads for more room for joy. So there is a lot about the kinesthetic sense that can be used to gain joy. The other thing we can think about is that repeated kinesthetic use. So if we talk about running distances, after that your body does release enkephalins and endorphins, and those are your happy neurotransmitters, and they can be, when they release, they can cause joy. So going out for that long run, going out for that long walk, going out for that long bike ride, exercising for an extended period of time can trigger that, which is also joy. And so those are kinesthetic components of joy and happiness that can be driven by the senses. Now, obviously, cracking your fingers can be good for you if you like it. That can also be stressful for you if you're listening to somebody else, because that top-down component, oh dear God, please stop that at this moment. And so there is, again, this energy to heal equals good energy and minus stressors. Your kinesthetic, your sensory information can bring you joy, but it can also bring you stress. And you have to figure out what are stressful sensory pieces of information and what are good energy pieces of information. And for me, cracking the top knuckles of my fingers are good energy in, probably has a lot to do with the fact that I do a lot of tissue work where I'm holding those joints, and then eventually the gas just builds up and I need to release them, and in releasing them I feel good. All right, so stretch, cracking your knuckles. By the way, just to let you know, cracking your knuckles does not lead to arthritis. But cracking your knuckles, stretching, repetitive joint activity, or pushing your body with a run or a long walk can release neurotransmitters, but also can just cause joy. All right, I hope you are getting a lot out of this. We have 3 more senses left to go. And if you are interested, I am adding to this information in a weekly e-pamphlet over in, you can find it over on thehealingequation.com. It is called Energy for You. I also kind of entitled it 52 Weeks of Energy. So if you're looking at these videos as like groups of information, like great, these are the senses, what else do we know about this? Those additional pieces of information and how to use the healing equation to help each of these topics that we're coming up with are showing up in my weekly e-pamphlet called Energy for You. You can sign up there and get a little bit more information about what these Bodyful videos are giving you. All right. I hope you are having a great week. I will see you back here tomorrow. Take a deep breath in and release. Take care.